something very special. Ansley Watson has been at the Iron Industry Museum, and she's going to be checking out some of the cool things that they have there. So if you missed it yesterday, you're going to get a chance to learn a little bit more about that this morning.
Good morning. We're standing in the mines today. As you can see right behind me, there's a couple of miners working really hard. But this morning, we're going to dive into the history of the iron industry. We're standing in the Michigan Iron Industry Museum, and we're going to check out the past all the way up to the present of how mining has impacted the UP. So stay with us. Reporting in Negaunee, Ansley Watson, TV6 News.
All right, thank you very much, Ansley. That's going to be a great report. That is a really cool place to check out.
Yeah, I'm excited for a little sneak peek here.
Yeah. So this morning, we're checking out some mining history and how it's impacted the Upper Peninsula. This morning, Ansley Watson is at the Iron Industry Museum in Negaunee Township to tell us more. Good morning, Ansley.
Good morning. We've been learning so much already here at the Michigan Iron Industry Museum. And joining me is this historian here, Troy Henderson. Good morning. Thanks for being with us.
Good morning. Thanks for coming.
So this museum was actually built where the forge was located. Why is that?
Right. It was built in 1987, and we tell the story of the Carp River Forge. The forge actually operated just out the windows here on the museum, so we have a good view of the forge site of the Carp River, and part of why the building is actually here, nestled kind of in the foothills, is we tell that story of the pioneer enterprise, which smelted the first iron in the UP, and it was really the seed for future iron smelting and manufacturing in the UP.
Kind of explain what the forge is.
The forge was there were about 50 people who lived here in the 1840s and 50s, and they took iron ore about 3 miles west of here from the Jackson mine and heated it up with charcoal and then pounded it into bars, and those bars were shipped to Marquette. The product of that is wrought iron, which is what a blacksmith would use to make nails, horseshoes, things like that. It's very malleable iron. So the Carp River Forge operated for about 10 years here and produced that high quality ore. And it was fairly unsuccessful from a business standpoint, but it did really kind of shine a light on the valuable ore deposits on the iron ranges here in the UP.
Talking about the people who lived here, you've actually found artifacts from those people and have a timeline of that. Talk to us about this a little bit.
Yeah, we have archaeologists have been on site doing excavations throughout the years and have unearthed a lot of domestic artifacts, industrial artifacts, which really tell the story of the forge and about the people who lived here. So we have artifacts on display here that were actually unearthed on site, just on the museum grounds here. We have pipe stems and buttons, a knife that somebody used in the 1840s and 50s, pieces of glass, pieces of pottery, and then we have more industrial tools like the axe head here.
That's an axe head.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and brick from a structure that was here on site. And then we know some of the people who were here, and we tell the story of those people here. And some of them remained in the UP, some of them after the forge stopped operating, like William Lem right here. He remained in the UP, worked in the blast furnace at the Chocolate River, and then stayed in the Munising area. And we actually have a sketch of him. A Harper's Magazine correspondent was going through the pictured rocks and hired Lem as a guide, so we know what he looks like. We have a sketch of him there. So he was one of the people who actually built the forge in 1847.
A lot of history here. And going on further, what do we have down here?
Yeah, we have, here we have this is charcoal that was manufactured on site, and then we have a piece of slag. This is the byproduct of the blast furnace process. And here we have a oxen shoe that was found on site, which was the animals were used to transport the ore and transport supplies to and from Marquette.
I was wondering how the transportation worked, and so it was all oxen?
Yeah, it was. This was before the railroad, so this
Right.
was a fairly primitive transportation, and these were pioneers living in relative isolation. There weren't a lot of people in the UP at that time at all, especially in the Marquette or Negaunee area, but yet they were able to get goods from ceramics and goods of that were manufactured in Europe even. So being so isolated, it was kind of fascinating to see the supplies they could get.
Wow, well, we have so much more to talk about. Thank you, Troy. Stay with us. Reporting in Negaunee, Ansley Watson, TV6 News.
All right, thank you very much, Ansley. It is a very fascinating place if you're looking for some place to get out of the wind and the rain today.
Welcome back. Well, this morning we continue to check out the Michigan Iron Industry Museum, talking about the past and present of mining in the UP. Ansley Watson is with us with more on that. Good morning, Ansley.
Good morning. The equipment that miners used to use has developed so much over the years, and talking more about that with me this morning is historian Troy Henderson. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having me.
So starting right here in the 1850s, what do we have here? What did they used to use for equipment?
Yeah, we start out with the earliest tools, and here we have actually a hand drill where they would drill into the ore bodies by hand, and there's an image of that. The process is called double jacking, where one miner held the drill and two miners hit it with a sledgehammer. We have an example of a sledgehammer right there. So this was manual labor breaking up the ore so it could be hauled and shipped out of Marquette. So, you know, this was very early, very manual labor intensive, and a little bit later when mining actually went underground, we have some examples of artifacts here. Candles were on the miners' helmets. This is called the sticking Tommy, where they would stick a candle in their helmet, and that would be how they see underground. We have a grain bag here. Mules were actually lowered down into the mine tunnels to transport ore. So the artifacts here kind of represent an early era in mining.
Talking about hard work.
It was very hard work, and you know, it continued. It still is hard work. I mean, they're still mining today, and but particularly the underground mining, the hard work, the dangers of underground mining is, you know, a big part of the story, and we tell that story in the timeline here.
So moving on, how do we progress?
Yeah, we progress, and it's kind of interesting to watch the helmets. I mean, the helmets get more and more protective. The light sources change. So by the 1940s, which would be over here, we have kind of a hard helmet with a battery pack and a light on the helmet here. And, you know, this was used in an underground mine probably in the 1940s, perhaps 1950s.
We're talking how this looks like the early ways of steel-toed boots here.
Right, yeah. It's you know, shoe protection. They would slip, a miner would slip those toe protectors right over their boot to protect their feet.
So then once the mules went out, what did we start using?
The cars were powered by electricity in the underground mines for a long time after the mules, you know, the drills were powered by electricity or by compressed air. So over time, you know, the methods advanced and the miners were able to more effectively mine underground, but, you know, it was still very dangerous and a fairly unique occupation.
And moving on nearly to the present, what do we do now?
Yeah, we've kind of finished with the present iron industry where the industry has dramatically changed since about the 1950s. Now there's no longer underground mining. They mine ore in a kind of a huge open pit and process that ore on site.
All right, well, thank you so much talking about the history of mining. Very interesting stuff. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
Reporting in Negaunee, Ansley Watson, and we'll be back with more of your TV6 Morning News after the break.